Ukraine and Russia, I mean, what's going down over in Ukraine is just terrible. I mean, you're talking about tens of thousands of people have lost their lives, civilians as well as soldiers. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that have lost their lives in terms of soldiers on the Russian side as well, which isn't a good thing. You know, even though I would say Russia is the instigator and they're the ones that are, you know, kind of going into Ukraine, causing problems for what doesn't really seem like much of an issue, right? I mean, like, they went over there because Ukraine wants to join NATO. So, you know, Russia now gets to decide what Ukraine does, you know, as a country, which is a little weird. I mean, like, why would you get to decide that? And you're so against them joining NATO that you're willing to go to war with them, which I thought was weird. But what's kind of funny, and nothing's funny about it, but what's, I guess, kind of ironic about the whole situation is now Finland and Sweden, who are bordering neighbors to Russia, are now thinking about joining NATO. And it's probably because they look at what's going down in Ukraine and they're like, well, if we're not in NATO by the time they decide to do whatever Russia and Putin's crazy butt wants to do, if we're not in NATO by then we're going to have problems and NATO's not going to come and help, which is very clear kind of in the Ukraine story. I mean, we're helping in terms of weapons and in terms of money and aid and things like that, but we're not helping in terms of, you know, troops on the ground. So, you know, I think it's very interesting to see what's going to happen. So if Finland and Sweden then decide to join NATO in the upcoming weeks, they said they're going to make the decision in weeks rather than months, right?
I mean, you kind of have to, right? I mean, you know, Russia has been just really like lying the whole time. Saying they're not going to war, going to war. You know, they're also using tactics that aren't necessarily the most.
Some people say they're possibly using chemical weapons.
I mean, they're hitting civilian places. They're just not. I wouldn't say they're really following the rules of war that kind of the whole world has kind of established as the rules of war. And like you said, so Sweden and Finland see this. And they're like, yo, we're not going to do what Ukraine did. We're going to try to join NATO before that happens. And Russia's not going to love that because, like you said, it's very ironic that right when that happens, Sweden and Finland are, you know, just like, yo, NATO, what's up? Because now Russia was trying to, like you said, eliminate a threat of NATO being on their border. But now, where the NATO could be triple fold on their border. So it's, you know, I don't know, Putin.
No, and that's what I think is interesting. And like you said, they kind of almost have to, I mean, you make the decision now, right? Because if you make the decision now while Russia is fighting in Ukraine and they say that, you know, supposedly they have somewhat close to a maximum capacity of their military in Ukraine, you know, kind of on this offensive. If you think about it that way, I mean, what is Russia going to do? They're going to come, you know, bring half of their military back through Russia to, you know, Finland and Sweden and fight there and then fight a war on both fronts. While they're potentially joining NATO. I mean, it doesn't make much sense for Russia. So, you know, I think that it's interesting, and I'm going to see how. I mean, I think Finland and Sweden should probably just hop on board now while they can.
I mean, why wouldn't you? Because, you know, they think more like us anyway. I mean, you're not going to. You don't want Russia dictating what you do, first off. Putin has already proven that you can't even run against him in an election, or you might get poisoned, or all the other crazy things that happens. People get arrested, their companies go under, tax fraud, they get claimed. So, I mean, like, nobody wants to live in a country with that, you know. So, I mean, they obviously want to jump on NATO board, and, you know, me personally, I'm all for it.
Who's fucking with NATO?
Come hang out with NATO.
No one's fucking with NATO.
You guys ain't really fucking with NATO, and we're down to teach the world the Western way of freedom and, you know, fair rights, equality. You know, women have rights, people have rights, children have rights. Everybody has the same rights. I mean, the Western world is a fair place and a very freedom place, and that's why people want to be a part of NATO because of the thought process. I feel like,
and I think that's why Russia's kind of
hating it,
grasping for straws, if you will, at this, trying to keep their kind of government control ideology with them and China. And, whoever else kind of affiliates with them and has that kind of thought process. And I think that's what they're scared of. They're scared of that Western philosophy invading into their people and showing their people that, hey, you can be free, and maybe liberating them against their government. Because we all know Vladimir Putin does not want anything to do with leaving the Russian government. No. He's made that very clear.
He's also made it very clear that he doesn't want the hands of NATO, because that's why he keeps threatening all his nuclear.
He don't want that smoke.
Because he don't want the smoke. He don't want the smoke, and he knows.
And if he goes nuclear, then Moscow and Russia is just going to be in rubble.
I mean,
because
we'll have every NATO country shooting. I mean, pretty much every one of them.
Yeah, we have nukes too. It's not like they're the only ones with nukes. So
Germany, I mean, come on. I mean, Germany
it would be terrible. Hopefully, it never gets there.
No, but let's just be honest. That ain't gonna. We're still about to beat that ass.
Yeah,
let's be honest.